Support WrestleTalk!
Donate on Patreon.
Hello and welcome to Fantasy Booking Warfare, where we pitch our own ideas for some of the biggest storylines, matches, what have you, in wrestling as voted for by our pledgehammers. And this time the task we have been given is to book Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 35, which, as we all know, Becky Lynch is going to win. Or is she? That's not how this works. I don't tell you up front. You're so impatient. Just wait to the end. She does. Or does she? You can click the eye above my head to vote on which booking you like more, mine or Luke's. But you gotta watch both videos first, otherwise you're technically cheating. I'm going to start my booking right where we are at the time of recording this, about to head into TLC, where Ronda Rousey is set to face facebreaker Nia Jax, and Becky Lynch has to defend her SmackDown Women's Championship in a triple threat TLC match against Charlotte Flair and Asuka. Because Becky's not on Raw, her match will no doubt be up first, both in real life and in my fantasy booking. So Asuka makes her entrance first to a huge pop following her ending on SmackDown, where she was standing tall over both Charlotte and Becky. Miss Flair is out next with a far more muted response, and she seems pretty pissed. Then Becky comes out, obviously, to a near rapturous pop. As the competitors are announced and Asuka gets a pop, Charlotte gets another meek little cheer, and Becky gets a hero's welcome, Charlotte snaps and barrels into Becky, knocking her down, and then goes straight after Asuka. She quickly breaks out the kendo stick to wail on both foes with devastating strikes and stands tall. But rather than set up a ladder and attempt to go after the title dangling above the ring, she just continues to lay strikes in on Asuka. This gives Becky the chance to compose herself and fire back. From here, the match goes back and forth with Lynch, Asuka and Flair all taking turns to be in control. Tables are set up, people go through them, ladders are jumped off, chairs meet backs. You know the drill. The finale comes as Lynch, who has been speared through a table in the corner, is laying still. Charlotte swings a kendo stick, cutting Asuka's legs out from under her. Bloody murder in her eyes. She locks on the figure 4 and then bridges into the figure 8. Asuka screams because there are no rope breaks here. Thankfully, Becky is around and Lynch manages to power to her feet. She stomps Charlotte flat, legs still entwined with Asuka. Becky then rolls them both over, reversing the pressure. Now it's Charlotte's turn to scream, a scream which only gets louder as Lynch locks on a disarm her. And with her legs locked and her arm wrenched backwards, Charlotte taps with her only free arm. But it doesn't end the match. However, Becky, having seen the tap, smiles and just lets go. She moves over and starts to set up a ladder, clearly struggling after the brutality of the match so far, but she begins to climb. Asuka then struggles to her feet after the damage of being in the figure 8 for so long and begins to climb the other side. The two make the top at the same time and begin to slowly trade stiff blows, but neither woman falls. Eventually Asuka stops swinging and just reaches for the title, absorbing a few strikes from Lynch in the process. Becky, realizing that her reign is in jeopardy, also gets her hands around the belt. As this is happening, Charlotte has grabbed hold of the discarded kendo stick and used it to help her stand on wobbly legs. She's cradling the left arm that Becky locked the disarmer on, meaning that she can only swing the kendo stick with one hand. She manages to get enough heft behind it to strike one of the women on the ladder, and that's Asuka, who tumbles to the canvas. Just like Chris Brooks. Charlotte then drops to her knees, propping herself up on the kendo stick, the last of her energy spent. Lynch, who is still holding the title, unclips it and retains. Some of this will pay off later, maybe, who knows. Later in the show, the stage is set for Nia Jax versus Ronda Rousey. Nia comes out first, alone, no sign of Tamina. Ronda enters with a pretty mean look on her face. At the bell, Ronda runs wild on Nia. She has been waiting to get her hands on her for weeks. She lays in strikes and kicks, and then the judo throws come out. With Nia down, she grabs an arm and starts to get herself set up for the armbar. But that's when Tamina walks out onto the stage, carrying a limp Ember Moon across her shoulders. With Ronda's latest best friend seemingly unconscious on the entrance ramp, she lets Nia go and steps out of the ring to confront Tamina, who has dropped Moon and is standing over her halfway up the ramp. But before Ronda reaches Tamina, Nia charges into her from behind, sending her sprawling on the steel ramp. Nia then proceeds to toss Ronda into every solid surface she can find during the 10 count before dumping her back into the ring, where the beatdown continues. Eventually, Nia hoists Ronda onto her shoulders looking for the Samoan drop, but Rousey manages to roll off, keeping hold of one arm to deliver a judo throw as she lands on her feet. But as Nia tumbles over Ronda's back, her trailing leg catches the referee, sending them sprawling to the outside. Ronda, having kept hold of the arm, but not noticing that the official was down, looks to lock in the armbar, only to be jumped from behind by Tamina. With the referee entirely unconscious, Nia and Tamina just take it in turns to maul Rousey. We got a super kick from Tamina, a Samoan drop from Nia, etc. Nia then tells Tamina to hold Rousey still. She grabs her up, holding her with her arms behind her back. Nia reaches forward and raises up her chin with her left hand. She looks at Ronda, and then she looks down at her right hand, slowly clenching her fingers into a fist. She's looking to break Ronda's face. At that exact moment, a crack rings out around the arena as a chair collides with Nia's right arm. It's Becky Lynch. She lays in more strikes to Nia's arm, forcing her to the ground, and gives Tamina a couple for good measure, who drops Rousey, leaving her slumped, and she powders to the outside. Lynch continues the assault, paying particular attention to Nia's arm, and as she screams and writhes in pain, a battered Rousey can only look on. Lynch then grabs Nia's arm, threads it through the middle of the chair. She takes one look at Rousey, who can only shake her head. Becky steps forward and stamps on the chair. She looks at Ronda, who shakes her head and mouths no. Becky smiles and turns as if to step out the ring. But she stops at the ropes before walking back over to Nia and locking on to disarm her through the chair. Nia's screams are gut-wrenching, but this only seems to egg Lynch on, who gives one final yank, hyper-extending the limb, which Nia sells as if it's been broken. Lynch stands up, slides the chair off, bows to Ronda while gesturing to Nia, and climbs out of the ring, pushing the official back in as she exits through the crowd. Ronda climbs to her feet, entirely unsure of what has just gone on. She stands above the screaming Nia and thinks for a moment before taking the arm as the official finally stirs. Nia taps before Ronda can even lock on the armbar fully. Ronda retains, and we see Becky applauding from within the crowd. Later in the show, we find out that Nia has a broken arm and is receiving emergency medical treatment. On Raw the following night, Rousey comes out to the ring. She's not smiling, she's not mean-faced, she looks sad. She says that she feels guilty about what happened last night, that as vindictive as Nia Jax is, she didn't deserve to be injured. She feels guilty that she didn't do something to stop Becky Lynch from breaking Nia's arm. She feels guilty that she retained her title in the way she did. She wanted to be a fighting champion, and throughout this year, she has proved that she is someone who will fight to retain her title against all comers. But it's not right to retain the title at any cost. She should have let the match be called off. She should have taken the DQ loss. She's sorry. She hasn't lost a match yet, and her competitive streak kicked in. But she won't let that come between her and doing what is right from now on. Over on SmackDown, Becky cuts a promo saying that not only did she beat Asuka and Charlotte Flair to retain her title at TLC, but she beat Nia Jax so well that the hashtag Facebreaker has been completely disarmed. This was revenge. Nia cost Becky the opportunity to put Ronda Rousey in her place. She cost Becky 5 weeks of doing the thing she loves, fighting. But now it's Nia who is the one who is paying. This wasn't about helping Ronnie, this was about revenge. TLC was just the perfect opportunity to do it. After all, pay-per-views are the best of both worlds, where all of the roster comes together. Well, she showed Jax the worst of this world, and this is the man's world. The next few weeks see Rousey and Lynch looking strong in some showcase matches on their respective shows, and the vicious banter between them continues on social media, as you'd expect. On SmackDown, Asuka claims that she should be champion. She had her hands on the belt, and it was only Charlotte choosing to let her friend win rather than actually being competitive that cost her the title. Charlotte interrupts and says that she should be champion. She was supposed to face Becky one-on-one before Asuka snuck her way into the match. Asuka says she defeated 8 women in a battle royal to have a shot at the title. What did Charlotte do? Charlotte says, 8 women? I'll defeat any number of women to take a shot at Becky again. They can form an orderly queue. But you're first in line. Paige here. You'll defeat any number of women to have a shot at the title. How about 30? because Charlotte Flair, you're going to be in the second ever Women's Royal Rumble, and so will Asuka. So all of the pre-Rumble build on SmackDown centres on the idea of Charlotte Flair and Asuka, whose feud has got so out of control in the past few weeks that they've been entered first and second as punishment. Ronda and Becky are at ringside for the actual Rumble match, and they have a tense confrontation when they meet before it actually begins, with Ronda shouting at Becky for interfering in her match at TLC. Charlotte and Asuka start things off with a truly vicious battle, trading signature move after signature move, but always finding their way back to each other during the match until enough women have actually joined to be able to separate them. Now, after being on the ends of separate beatdowns from the assembled superstars and legends, the pair managed to fire up and begin to work together to eliminate the competition. They worked their way through the final 10 competitors with ease, dumping number 29 over the top and facing off in the centre of the ring. The final 2 women standing. Except they aren't, because the crowd begin to count down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. The women both turn towards the Titantron. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nia Jax's music hits. Because in my fantasy booking world, Mixed Match Challenge doesn't exist, so we don't have to have Carmella or Alicia Fox come in at 30. Anyway, Nia Jax's music hits. Asuka and Charlotte look stunned. Wasn't she injured? Isn't she out? They're staring at the ramp, because Nia hasn't come out yet. Except she has. She's come out from the crowd and she's attacked Becky from behind, dumping her into the ring post, while Tamina does the same to Ronda Rousey. Nia then slides into the ring and double clotheslines Asuka and Charlotte over the top rope while they're still wondering, what the hell's even going on, man? Nia wins the Rumble, drags Lynch into the ring, holding her by the hair. She points at Lynch and then she points up to the WrestleMania 35 sign. On Raw, Nia comes out and says that she won the Rumble not to win a shot at the SmackDown title, but to humiliate Becky Lynch. Lynch may have broken her arm, but she will break Becky's body. She will break Becky's spirit. Becky will never wrestle again once Nia is through with her. Her execution day is set. For the next 3 months, Lynch knows that she's a dead man walking. Later in the show, Alexa Bliss, who is GM because that's fun, reveals that the winner of the women's elimination match will get a shot at the Raw Women's title at WrestleMania. Over on SmackDown, Becky says that she's not scared of Nia, even though Nia called her a dead man walking. Well, there's been a knife to Lynch's back ever since she got to SmackDown Live. The entire roster wanted to keep her away from this title. All of the management wanted to keep her away from this title, but now she has it. She won't let it go for anything. And anyway, she's already broken the face breaker once before. One person she hasn't broken, though, is Ronda Rousey. And they have unfinished business. But unfortunately, Lynch says, I already have a match at WrestleMania. The next week on Raw, Sasha Banks, because I like her, wins a chance to be in the Elimination Chamber after beating the entire Riot Squad in a gauntlet match, because that would also be fun. But Bliss, being a heel and looking to stack the deck, adds the entire squad as a reward for good sportsmanship in the gauntlet match, filling 4 of the 6 places. The following week, Natalya wins a qualifier and Banks says it's unfair that she and Natty had to win places and everyone else is just being added willy-nilly. Bliss says, hey, I'm the GM and I get to make the decisions. Banks says, who are you going to add next then? Alicia Fox? Mickie James? Bliss laughs and says, no, I'm not going to add Mickie James. I'm adding La Luchadora, of course. So Ronda is at ringside for the Elimination Chamber match, which sees Banks starting things off against Sarah Logan. It's back and forth action, but Banks seems to have the upper hand until Liv Morgan enters. The pair then work over Banks until Natty enters and even things up. Morgan is eliminated just as Ruby Riott is released from her chamber. The Riot Squad manage to get rid of Natty and begin to work on Banks. Finally, La Luchadora is released from her cell. The remaining Riots let her join in on playfully kicking Banks around the ring. The Riots laugh and Ruby goes for the pin on Banks. But La Luchadora stomps her to break it up. Ruby jumps to her feet and says, Mickie, what the hell are you doing? Luchadora shoves Riot to the ground, reaches up, takes off the mask, and it's revealed to be Becky Lynch. Rousey is shocked at ringside. Lynch hits a huge Bexploder on Logan and pins her 1, 2, 3. Becky helps Banks to her feet and an amazing three-way battle ensues. Eventually, Riot taps to the Banks statement and it's just Becky and Sasha left. There are near falls and submission reversal after submission reversal, but eventually Becky hits a Bexploder through the side of a chamber, chucks Banks in the ring and pins her 1, 2, 3. After the match, Becky grabs a mic and says, "I know I said that I already had a match at WrestleMania, so Ronnie would have to wait. Well, now it looks like I have two." Rousey is apoplectic. On Raw, Ronda cuts a promo on Becky saying that she's interfered for far too long. She's a SmackDown star. She shouldn't be getting into Raw's business. Becky comes out on Raw with the SmackDown title held aloft. She says that she fought harder for this title than any woman before her, than any woman could, because she is the man. She fought hard for this title, but she also fought hard for that title. Now she's earned her shot. Ronda says that's fine, because she has a match with Nia Jax at Mania 2. She could either walk out of there a double champion, or with absolutely nothing. Bliss then arrives and says that while Becky wasn't technically supposed to be in the Elimination Chamber match, she admires her gumption, so will honour her as the #1 contender. But it's not fair that only a SmackDown star has the option of walking away as a double champion at Mania. That's why Nia Jax will face Ronda Rousey at Fastlane for the Raw Women's Championship. That way, when Nia wins at Fastlane and at WrestleMania, she can bring both belts back to SmackDown. Nia and Tamina then jump Rousey and Becky, ending the show. We fast forward to Fastlane and Becky bests whoever she's in a match with. It doesn't really matter at this point. But during the Ronda/Nia match, the exact same thing happens as happened at TLC. Becky intervenes to stop Nia and Tamina from toppling Ronda after the referee takes a bump. But this time, as she goes to lock on a disarmer, Ronda drags her off and they begin to brawl. The referee stirs and sees Lynch deck Rousey, causing the match to end in a DQ and for Ronda to pick up the win, which she does not look best pleased about. On Raw, Ronda looks dour again. She said that Lynch has been causing havoc in Raw's matches for too long and that Ronda's winning streak is intact, but there is a black mark against 2 of those victories now. At WrestleMania, she's going to beat Lynch clean in the center of the ring and put an end to this. On SmackDown, Lynch cuts a promo of her own, saying she's sorry for interfering. It's kind of selfish, really. She just wants Ronnie all to herself. She wants to prove that she's better than the baddest woman on the planet, even on her worst day, because she already has to defend her title at WrestleMania, and even if she's tired and beaten and bloody, she'll take Ronda's too. Because this whole time, while you thought I was interfering just to mess with you, to get inside your head, I've been the one keeping you fresh. So that when I do beat you, you have no excuses. She drops the mic and she walks out. Come Mania, Rousey and Becky is set for the main event. But first, obviously, Becky has to defend her title against Nia Jax in the opener of the show. Nia has Tamina in her corner and Lynch is all alone. Fortunately, it doesn't actually matter because this is a Goldberg on Brock Lesnar level of mauling from Lynch. Becky goes straight for Nia's surgically repaired arm, hitting it with hard strikes, her running twisting leg drops, and then quickly posting Tamina so she can lock in the disarm her. Nia Jax has been well and truly dealt with now. So the show passes. Becky is still SmackDown Women's Champion and now stands on the precipice of becoming the first ever double Women's Champion. The match with Rousey is an absolute belter with amazing back and forth action. And then in the final stretch, just as it looks like Lynch has the upper hand against a tiring Rousey, Nia Jax appears, clocking the referee from behind with a brutal left hand. And she then proceeds to beat down Becky Lynch with the help of Tamina. Nia and Tamina work over Lynch's arm and then leave her laying there, and they gesture to Rousey to finish the job as they step out of the ring and head to the back as a new official runs down the ramp. Rousey looks at the downed Lynch, seemingly conflicted. She stands and takes Lynch's arm. She steps one leg across, looking like she's about to lock in the armbar, but she doesn't. She steps back, keeping hold of the hand, and she hoists Lynch to her feet. As Becky stands, she clasps Ronda's hand in a mutual show of respect, and then she gives one big yank, pulling Ronda off balance and forcing her to the ground into a disarmer. Ronda fights as much as she can, but she's in the centre of the ring. She's left with no choice but to tap out. Becky is now the first ever double women's champion. The pyro goes off, the celebration begins, the end graphic comes up as Lynch stands tall on the ramp and as the show closes, leaving Ronda at ringside. But then Lynch is blindsided by three figures: Shayna Baszler, Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke, who kick the living crap out of Lynch. Rousey stumbles up the entranceway to see the other three horsewomen with the downed Lynch. She pushes them out of the way to cover Lynch's body, stands up, thinks for a second, takes her arm as if to pull her up, and instead locks on a vicious armbar. The show goes off the air. So that is my fantasy booking of Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch at WrestleMania 35, with a little bit of horsewomen thrown in there at the end. If you liked it, you can vote for it by clicking the eye above my head, but please do make sure to watch Luke's video first, which you can do by clicking the video on screen now. And remember, it's all to play for. Make your choice properly. Don't just pick your favourite person, because this is all to play for, because it's winner stays on. I've been Fakidor, and that was Fantasy Booking.